Health and wellness are more than a destination. They are a process and a journey of personal choice. Come hear from people out in the field, doing the work, bringing health and wellness to many. Hello, welcome everyone. We are so delighted to have Joanne Callahan here from Ireland. She is author, a speaker, a sleep coach, let's see what else, podcaster, you have so many things, clinical aromatherapist, and an entrepreneur, and a mom. Wow, that's lovely. Now, you have a very interesting story you have shared with me, and I would just like to ask you if you can share for the audience a little bit about yourself and what brings you here.
Yeah, so Colleen, first of all, thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited, because to share all my wisdom and, to help people. And really why I'm doing the work that I'm doing is, well, I lost my daughter in 2007. And her name is Megan. Yeah. She actually died on the day that she was due. And why that was so significant, and really that was the changing of my direction in life, of my work, because when I was very young, I had a child, I was abused, and I had a child very, very young. I was only 16. And when I had Megan, my husband wanted to have a child, and I was like, no way, I'm not having a baby, no way. So we had to get a lot of counselling. I had to get an awful lot of work done, and for my mind and what have you, And I planned everything, gave up my work after 17 years, moved to a brand new home, bought a new car, everything. But when the day came that she was due, she died. So it was absolutely devastating. Your children are not supposed to go before you. But really, I went into a very dark place, the very depths of depression. And really, Kathleen, what I got out of that, because there's always something positive, and I know it's very difficult to find something positive in that. But what I got to see from that was, I met a spiritual lady a few years later, and she taught me how to love myself again. She taught me how to forgive myself. She taught me how to sit in my heart. She taught me all about gratitude. And what I got from that, Kathleen, was an amazing insight that we human beings are so powerful. And it's all here in the mind and how we think and how we see things, how we perceive things. And that's my background, why I got into the whole health and wellness, because I started doing Reiki, massage, all the energy, all these holistic therapies, aromatherapy. And from there I got into sleep, because I identified a lot of my clients, my massage clients, were not sleeping well. Yeah. So that's why I wrote the book on sleep, how to get a good night's sleep. Yeah. So that's a bit of background, as to why I got into the whole health and wellness area and sleep.
Well, it's such an amazing story, because I used to work in labor and delivery, so I do really resonate with what can happen. And how traumatic, and how it is a trauma to lose a child at any age. And the baby is it's just very, I really can feel that story. Yeah. I also think it's beautiful what you took from it, because we all have stories. Absolutely, and we all have how we handle the story is so much a part of us, and our evolution and our consciousness, actually.
Exactly, it's what we do with what happened. And when we take an attitude of, not what happened to me, but what happened for me, if you like, because there's always a positive, there's always learning, and I like to have that attitude. Sometimes I still need to be reminded, because I'm a human being, but I generally do have that attitude,
Well, it's a really beautiful way that you came to explain it, and that you came to help other people, actually. It's so amazing. Yeah. Now, you have also an online training, right? Yeah. You have developed this. It's almost a school. It is a school.
Yeah.
And can you give a little bit of history of the school?
Sure.
And kind of.
So I was doing all the massages and the Reiki and all of that, and I had the clients. But it was very challenging, because a few years later I had my gorgeous daughter Leah, and that's challenging. I was a stay-at-home mum, so I just said to myself, well, what can I do to reach people and educate people and empower people? So I said, an online school. I can do it online. We have the internet. It's fantastic. So I did a program on online courses and all the marketing that you need to do, and webinars and all of this. Really intensive, but really exciting. And from there I set up my school, and my first program was aromatherapy.
Nice.
And because the essential oils are so powerful. They are so powerful. And I use them quite a lot for sleep as well, anxiety, stress. But my course has various different programs in there. I do live programs and I do recorded programs. So really just something there to suit anybody and your pocket as well. So.
Wonderful. Do you have a program about sleep in particular?
Yeah, so my main one that I do is it's a 12-week live group coaching program.
Nice.
So I take people live every week and I see them every week on Zoom.
Wonderful.
So you can do it in the comfort of your own home. And we do, we cover lots and lots of content from nutrition. We talk about what is sleep, why is sleep so important. We talk about the circadian rhythms and clocks and, things that you can do during the day, stress management, that's a huge thing as well. So many different topics that we cover over the 12 weeks. And we do lots of one-to-ones and Q&As. So lots of handouts and tools to help you along the way as well. So.
Oh, that's so nice. Now, I know you have a history that you, in the past, you gave a sort of seminar or it was a mind-body. It was in June of 2017.
Yeah.
You gave, it was like a mind-body empowerment.
Yeah.
Was it a seminar or something?
Yeah, it was like an expo.
Oh, an expo.
So,
okay.
so I had other people there, other stands and other experts, if you like, sharing their knowledge as well. And I also had speakers. And do you know, I actually nearly did not show up for that event myself. I was so nervous because it was my first event. And my mentor at the time, he rang me early that morning and I didn't show up. And he's like, Joanne, where are you? And so anyway, he had a few words with me. He said, Joanne, your guests are here waiting for you. Come on. So I hopped in the car and off I went. And you know what? It was just nerves because public speaking is like you can be really nervous doing it. But it was a fantastic event. It was a full day event. We had 3 speakers, including myself. So yeah, it was fantastic.
Well, you conquered that one, right?
Yeah.
You're an excellent speaker now.
Yeah, I can't stop me.
That's wonderful. Now, you have shared with me that you did an expo in 2017.
Yes.
You have had some mentors
Yes.
helping you to give this expo.
Yeah.
It was one particular international speaker was with you, Dr. Glow,
Yes.
or her name is Glorian
Giovanelli. Yeah, it's a difficult one to pronounce. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how that has helped you or guided you or started you actually off on this career.
It was a great start to my career actually because my mentor, Pat Slattery at the time, so I was working with him for a long time and he challenged me actually to put on this expo and I was terrified. But you know what, I got dug in and organised and had lots of other people come. And Dr. Glorianne helped, she was a speaker on the day as well and she shared the stage with me and that was really exciting because she was a well-established speaker and really, known in her field. So she's a nutritionist and amongst many other things. So it was really a privilege to be able to share the stage with her and also Pat Slattery as well on the day. So it really was phenomenal. I actually did a fantastic talk that day and it was just the start of many more after that.
You have written a book on sleep. You've actually become a sleep expert.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is really your passion.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your book and for the audience, some important
Yeah, it
information.
was really interesting about the book because my mentor, Pat Slattery, as I said, he challenged me to do a lot of things and one of them was to write a book. And the purpose of writing the book was to really help leverage my business another little bit. I didn't know what to write about, to be honest with you. And he said to me, what's the biggest pain point your clients are having? And I identified many people were exhausted. They didn't have time or energy to play with their kids. They were falling asleep during the daytime. They couldn't think straight, all these things. So I said, I'll write a book on sleep. And it was when I was writing the book on sleep, what I found through research was just so profound that I said, I've got to teach this. So that's another reason why I started my online school as well. So an awful lot of my work and online programs is based on my book. But the book is just full of research and it's really packed with backed up information. So it's a really fantastic resourceful book.
Wonderful. Now I can honestly say I've had this once in my life after I had children. And we can all relate to that, right?
Yeah.
But when you are in this cycle where you don't sleep, you just start your brain doesn't work, it affects every system in the body. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it affects everything from the brain, the heart, your metabolism, all the different systems in your body, your immune system, our mood. It affects everything. There's not one cell in the body that it does not, help. And sleep is just profound. We cannot survive without sleep. It's vital for our health and wellness, for our physical health. our mental health, our emotional health. And if you don't wake up the next day, after sleeping well, the first thing somebody would say to you, did you not sleep well, Kathleen?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really important
true.
because, it's going to determine how your day unfolds. And, for many people, they deliberately deprive themselves of sleep. So that's one thing. Then there's other people who do have difficulty, like, they have medical problems or whatever. So there's lots of reasons why we're not sleeping well. But for the most part, most of us are deliberately depriving ourselves of sleep, and that's not good.
Like we're on the tablets or something before.
Yeah.
We're like all hyper and then or stressed.
We've got the wrong, we're using the tablets and all that late before we go to bed. Our whole routine is out of whack and we're not really respecting our rhythms, if you like. And we need to have a wind down routine because sleep is not an on-off switch. You got to wind down, slow everything down. Your blood pressure, your heart rate, your body temperature, all that has to cool down and slow down before you can actually have the onset of sleep. And it's all hormonally based as well, your hormones, and it's all based on timing and everything. And your body is so intelligent, So we really do have to adapt a more healthier lifestyle and also be aware of our rhythms, So many people are going to bed at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning deliberately. Now we do have night owls as well, but for the most part, as I say, we deliberately deprive ourselves.
And then they wake up early and then they're like 5 hours sleep or something.
And you know what? A lot of people that are waking up really early in the morning, they've got a really busy mind and it's their body getting them up. Oh, you got to do this because they go to bed with those thoughts. And an awful lot is to do with how we're thinking and the busy mind and the chaotic lifestyle that we're all leading at the moment.
Yeah.
And we're always, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And we're rushing and we're multitasking and, we're not focused on one thing. And it's when we're focused on one task, that's when we've a better quality, better performance, better productivity. So, when we sleep well, everything's just a lot smoother and we can think and we're more focused and we have more energy. And our immune system, in particular as well, can really suffer.
How important is that today?
Oh, huge. I mean, I'll give you when we're sleeping in a deep phase of sleep, so we have all these different cycles and phases of sleep. And our deep sleep is where we get all the healing and repairing. So this is when all our cells are renewed and regenerated, and that's really important. But for our immune system in particular, we have these T cells, and these are really vital for viruses. And viruses are really, really sneaky, right? They're really, really sneaky. So, if we are not sleeping well, these T cells are not produced. They're only produced at night time when we're sleeping. And if you sleep, there has been studies, if you sleep for 4 hours or less in one night, your immune system is compromised by up to 70%. And that's significant. That's one night. So you can imagine if you're having a series of bad nights, and it costs nothing to sleep well, and to have a healthy lifestyle that will enable you to sleep well and to be able to relax and wind down at night time. It's super important, and our immune system is vital at the moment that we keep it strong.
Well, it's very interesting because I do remember that particular time in my life when I had my first child that I learned meditation.
Yeah.
And that I was very anxious also with this first child, which is normal, right?
Yeah.
And he wasn't sleeping well and all that. But what was interesting about that time is that when I learned to meditate, it was like a debrief of my mind.
Yeah.
And then my sleep naturally got better.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know what, the whole stress thing, is just, it can't be underestimated. Now we all have stress to some level, and there's various different types of stress. But the meditation really helps the brain waves to slow down, and the breathing that we're doing, because we breathe much deeper when we're meditating. And the deep breathing can help to activate the vagus nerve. And when we talk about the nervous system, we've got 2 parts to the nervous system. And with the deep breathing, we're activating the vagus nerve and helping with all that winding down and basically telling the body that you're safe. And this is what's so important. And when your body feels safe, it's going to relax naturally and you're going to be able to sleep much better.
Yeah, of course. Now, you mentioned the amount of hours. Is this something you talk about when you teach about it, or is it in your book? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a question I get asked all the time. So how many hours of sleep do I need? Well, it depends. And I know I hate that. It depends. So it depends on how old you are, first of all, and, female, male, whatever. So for young babies sleep maybe 16 to 18 hours. Teenagers, maybe 10, 12 hours. And it gradually gets less as we get older. But for an adult, about 7 to 9 hours for a healthy adult, and anything less than that is going to compromise your immune system, and it's going to affect your weight as well, and many other metabolic processes in the body. So as we get older, we need less sleep. But the thing is, with our melatonin, our sleep hormone, as we get older, we produce less of that. And we need melatonin to help us sleep. So a lot of elderly people may find it difficult to sleep, but an awful lot of that maybe they might be on medications, their melatonin, there's less supply of melatonin, but there's ways around it. There's things that we can do to help sleep better. But they're the kind of ages, and teenagers in particular, I like to mention teenagers because they have a natural shift in their circadian rhythm. So they become kind of night owls. So it shifts forward. So they tend to go to bed later, and they can't get up in the morning for school.
Yeah,
They're too peeled out of the bed in the mornings, you know. But this is natural. And I just say to parents, you know what, just open the curtains and let the natural daylight in, and this will help to switch off the melatonin. But just for the parents to know that this is a natural, and not give them a hard time, not call them lazy.
Yeah.
It's a natural part of the cycle. But it's a cycle. We all have different cycles as we age and go through life.
Yeah, and you bring up the elderly, and I know they have the most trouble with sleeping.
Yeah.
And that is because of this decrease in melatonin and everything. That's so interesting.
Yeah. And another thing about the elderly as well, you know, that the eyes have two functions, obviously to see with, but it's also for taking in light information. And this is what determines our cycles, our circadian rhythm. And with the elderly people, their pupils are a lot smaller, and they tend to take in less daylight. So it's more difficult for, you know, with the sunshine. Sunshine's really, really important to be outdoors. So we actually take in less daylight when we're elderly. So we may need to just stay a little bit longer when we're elderly. So there's something now as well, that can help.
That's so interesting. Yeah. There is a science of sleep. And you mentioned cellular level. Can you kind of give us a little idea of this?
So you know, sleep, it works right down to the cellular level. It affects every single cell in the body. But the thing about the science of sleep is they're still finding out about this. Researchers and sleep doctors, they've really only discovered things in the last 10, 15 years. So what's really important is to understand the different phases and the cycles of sleep at nighttime. So we have our deep sleep, which I mentioned earlier. So deep sleep is where all the healing and repairing is done, is where the immune system is built up, if you like. And then we've got the Rem sleep. And Rem sleep is really important. This is where we dream at nighttime.
Is that after?
So we go in cycles. So we've got your light sleep, then we've got deep sleep, and then we've got REM sleep. So they're the three main parts, and that's one cycle. And one cycle lasts about 90 minutes, typically about 90 minutes. So we might have 4 or 5 of these cycles a night. Wow. So we will go through all these cycles, and so your light sleep, it's very light. You can still have your senses, but once you go into deep sleep, this is where everything slows down. Your breathing is really slow. Your blood pressure, your body temperature is very low as well. And this is where all the healing repairing is done. It's where the growth hormone is released, and that's a major part. And it's also a fat burning hormone as well. So when we talk about weight management, that comes into play there. And then we've got REM sleep, which comes after that. And so REM sleep and deep sleep would take up about 20%, say, of your overall sleep during the nighttime. But REM sleep is significant for your emotional health, your mental health, but also your memory and your learning as well. This is super, super important. You may find teenagers cramming for exams and staying up late at nighttime. It's the worst thing that you can do, because it's not helping the information stick.
Yeah.
And all that happens in REM sleep. So that's really, really important.
And the cell level.
Yeah. So
what happens there?
So right down on the cell level, you know, it just affects every single cell on the body, and even down to the brain. And the brain is a very important new discovery as well. So when you talk about right down to the cell level, we have these toxins in the brain. They're called beta amyloid, and they accumulate in the brain during the daytime. So it's just a byproduct. It's a natural toxin.
Just from life.
Yeah. It's all the cellular activity. So it's like every single cell in our body is like, it has its own breathing system and waste system, every single cell. So in the brain, it's the same as well. And this byproduct, this is a toxin. So this is all the cellular activity that we have going on during the daytime. We have this byproduct. At nighttime, this is when all the detoxification is so important, that we detoxify our body. You've got to take the garbage out, otherwise it gets all clogged up and nothing works right, and the cells can't talk to each other. So our cells are really, really intelligent. They talk to each other. So we need to keep the garbage out. So this is what happens at nighttime, right down to the cell level. And in the brain, the cerebral spinal fluid comes along at nighttime. The brain shrinks to enable this fluid to come into the brain and literally wash out all these toxins.
Interesting?
So it's incredible. It's profound what the body does, and each stage is really, really important. So that's done in the repairing stage, the deep phase, the slow wave sleep, all that brain clearing out is done. So
Now I can imagine that if you're cleaning, you have to do this every night. And then you have more stress and more stress in the day. And you're not doing things like meditation, and you're not doing anything to alleviate the stress. Then the brain gets probably so filled with toxins, it can't clean anymore.
And all these beta amyloids have been shown, there's a build-up of these like clusters in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So there's a big correlation there. Now, it's not the only thing, it doesn't,
But it's big,
and it really is not to be overlooked.
Yeah, and as I've done some research on these amyloid plaques for Alzheimer's and dementia, they are sticky. They're like filled with like debris, literally toxins that are sticky because the brain has a lot of fat in it. So it's very interesting.
It really is.
So you mentioned a little bit about when we don't get enough sleep, that we have more tendency for obesity, and this is a huge problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked that, because I actually have a program, a short course called How to Lose Weight While You Sleep.
Oh, nice.
It's very attractive, And really what it is, Kathleen, again, there's a couple of things, right? So first of all, I mentioned circadian rhythms earlier on, okay? Now, when we lived in caves thousands of years ago, right, we only ate during the daytime. We never ate at nighttime because we didn't have, light and electricity to cook or whatever. So we only ate in a small window of time during the daytime. So this is a cue for our biological clocks, believe it or not. So and our metabolism slows right down at nighttime, because our body is switching mode, if you like, because it's doing all the healing, repairing and all that. So our metabolism slows down. It's not required late at nighttime during the night when we're sleeping. So this is how we've evolved, right? And it's still the same today. But what do we do now? We're having late night snacks and we're eating really heavy meals. Our metabolism is slowed down. We were never meant to digest our food late at night time. So that's the first thing. And then we've got the insulin problem and the blood glucose. And a lot of people like to have sugary desserts after their dinner. So that's your blood glucose. And a lot of people actually wake up during the nighttime because of blood sugar issues in the body. But where the weight thing comes in is the body can't digest, and the food is fermenting in the body, and therefore it's not been used as energy and it's been stored as fat. And then you've got your insulin levels as well. And the significant thing is, when you've got insulin in the body, the growth hormone can't work optimally, and the growth hormone, which comes out in the deep phase of sleep, this is involved in all the healing, repair and growing development, and it's a fat burning hormone as well. So it can't work effectively if you're at been eating quite a lot and there's food still going around and it's fermenting in your stomach, like ooh. So and you know what, there's a lot of people now who are sleeping,
and then they probably can't go to the bathroom well either.
It's
like a vicious cycle,
clogged up. And there's a lot of people who, if they're not sleeping well, and this can, all these diseases can take 10 years whatever to develop, and look, time goes by, doesn't it? And there's a lot of people who have these diseases like obesity and type 2 diabetes, which is very much, part of people who are not sleeping well over a long period of time because of this insulin and glucose in the body. And really it's the high insulin levels. A lot of people are just looking at blood glucose, but it's the high insulin levels in the body. And also, so you're having the obesity, and there's so many people, there's 6 out of 10 people in Ireland with obesity problems or overweight, and that's massive, even children. And this is going to have other impacts, and with type 2 diabetes, there's lots of other things that you're going to have problems with down the road as a result of type 2 diabetes. And then heart disease, the list just goes on. It's just incredible. And
so
a lot of
one thing goes to the next. The stress impacts the sleep, and then the sleep impacts the health. And it's literally like that.
And the whole thing about stress is, so we've got our cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and it's not entirely a baddie, right? We need cortisol to get us up in the morning time. So cortisol and melatonin kind of work, they're like dancing partners, you know. So, but cortisol is very much related to stress. So if like everything else, if we've too much stress, we're going to have excess amount of cortisol. And if the body needs energy when it's stressed, it's going to look for blood glucose, you know, it's going to look for sugar. And cortisol is very good at doing that. And, you know, it's just a vicious circle when we get into the stress. We're living a busy, chaotic life. It's just like a hamster wheel. You know?
So if you're working with clients, how do you start to work with them before we get into sleep disorders? What is the first thing, let's say, someone can do to help themselves in the situation?
God, yeah, so there's a lot. So what I like to do is, you know, the wheel of life, there's a wheel of life that a lot of coaches use.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I ask them, you know, what area in your life is causing you the most frustration, you know, or what one thing in your life? It could be a spouse, it could be financial problems, it could be your weight, you know, it could be your children, or you might have lost work or whatever. There's so many things that have happened over the last couple of years that can cause us stress, you know, and this can cause us not to be able to relax. It's all about not being able to relax in the evening time. So I try and identify where the stress is coming from, because I'm not a doctor, so I don't look at the medical issues per se. So it's an awful lot is really down to lifestyle and stress and how we're living our lives, because lifestyle, really we like to do things for comfort, and they're not always good, you know. So this is where addictions come in and all that. And you know, that's another, you know, we can be addicted to our phones as well as foods and all the rest. Yeah.
And that can obviously influence us not to sleep. So.
Yeah, and we do all this as a comfort, a safety thing, you know, this is why we do this.
Yeah.
Whereas if we're aware of what's causing us distress and we can identify it, because a lot of the times we are not aware of what's causing us stress. So that's really where I start. And then I look at mindset in a big way, because a lot of people say to me, oh, I wake up at 3 o'clock every night, you know, no matter what I do. Yeah. And I say, okay, well, you've just told your brain that, so your brain always wants to comply. So an awful lot of this has got to do with mindset as well. So this is the first module that I do is mindset. You know,
so what are we telling ourselves every day about sleep?
And what's your relationship to sleep as well? So how do you feel about sleep? Do you value sleep? Is it important to you? A lot of people don't value sleep. You know, they'll say, oh, I need to finish this project first and then I'll go to bed, or I need to clean the kitchen first. You're not valuing your sleep, you know, and if you don't value your sleep, you're not going to do it well, you know. And, you know, it's really important that we do value sleep, because it's absolutely vital for our health. It's like, it's up there with water, food, air. We absolutely need them
it's so essential. So I think if you really look at it, people, like you say, they don't value it. They feel probably like there are not enough hours in the day, like a very high, how our pressure is in society, that they have a lot to do. Yeah. And they're not being. Yeah. They're not being enough. They're doing. But you cannot be as effective doing if you don't learn to be. That has been my lesson.
100%. Yeah. Absolutely. That is such a strong point, because so many of us are running around, we're doing 5 and 6 jobs at the one time. And you know what, people think women are great multitaskers, right? And, you know, they might be at home with the women. Now, I know there are men at home as well with their kids, but primarily, you know, there's a lot of women and they'll do many jobs at once. But if you're doing 5 jobs at one time, you're not focused on one particular job. Therefore, you're not giving 100% quality, you know, to that job. So for many of us, we're multitasking and we're doing loads of jobs. I'm like, I have to get this done. And many people say, God, there's not enough hours in the day. We all have the same amount of hours. And we talk about time management, but time is always the same. It's really about task management as opposed to time management, and just managing your tasks, and really, you know, to have good quality in your production, your productivity or whatever, to have that in mind and really map out your day. And for me now, I'm an entrepreneur and I've a young child, so I mind her, and I have to put my mammy hat on and cook the dinner. Yeah. So I'll have, you know, 2-hour slots of Zoom calls or training. And then I might have another 2 hour where it's a flexi window and I might cook something, go for a walk or whatever. And the flexi time is really important to me, that I can catch up if I need to do anything. But, you know, you really got to plan your day out, but keep it flexible as well and have fun. Fun is missing in so many people's lives.
Oh, yeah.
People like work. I have to earn money. Yeah. You know, I have to, you know, and it's this resistance, you know, and this this, grind, and, that has people so stressed.
Well, and I know because one of the things I've seen as a coach and help people heal is that they literally, they're so stressed out all day. They don't allow me time. Yeah. They don't have these little window pockets where they do nothing, and they're just, and so they get to the end of the day and they're so stressed out they only can relax with alcohol. Yeah. And so they start to drink and every night, and then what I've noticed is they often have trouble sleeping over time.
And I'm glad you mentioned alcohol, because I have a lot of clients with the same, and they'll say, oh, I only have just a one nightcap. If you have 5 or 6 drinks or whatever, you'll fall into bed and you'll collapse and you'll go to sleep straight away, because some people are desperate to sleep and they do anything to knock themselves out. Yeah. But the thing is, when you take alcohol, even one drink, it's going to affect your Rem sleep, which is your dream sleep. And it has been shown in scientific studies. It blocks your REM sleep. You're also going to have fragmented sleep. And you're also going to, alcohol is a diuretic, so you're also going to get up and go to the bathroom during the night as well. So all these factors when you have a drink. So if you do want to have a drink, have one maybe an hour or two before bed. And, for every 1 unit of drink, leave an hour for your liver to detoxify it, so that's out of your system before you go to bed. And always drink, I always drink a glass of water. I don't drink actually, but when I do, Christmas time, a glass of water for every 1 drink that I've had as well.
It's the same as coffee, right? It's really important.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, because they both can dehydrate.
Yeah.
Okay, so alcohol is an issue, but I think also and we talked about stress being an issue, and trying to wind down. Give yourself some time away from electronics. Give me time, give space, organize your tasks with periods of calm, downtime. Those are also helpful. But I'm also curious now, there are actual sleep disorders.
Yes.
And this is another level of difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a concern because there's so many people. I think there's 70 million people in the United States with sleep disorders, so sleep disorders is basically anything that's going to interrupt your sleep. And a lot of people actually would have some sleep disorders but not even be aware of it. And they'll say, oh, but I sleep 7 to 9 hours or whatever, but I'm still exhausted. So daytime sleepiness is a big indicator. So one that I really like to talk about is sleep apnea, because a lot of people have sleep apnea and they're not actually aware of it. My husband had sleep apnea and I was not aware of it for a lot, and this is before I even got into sleep. And it was so funny because he just happened to be in hospital for something that happened, and they took a medical history and they said, do you sleep well? And he said, yeah, fine, not a problem. And I happened to be in the room and I said, well, you might sleep fine, but I don't, because he snores. He's a terrible snorer.
Is that a sign of it?
It is. It can be a sign, especially if it's really, really loud. If it's really loud snoring, then it's an indicator. But what sleep apnea is, it's this cessation of breath. It's when you stop breathing multiple times during the nighttime, and it can be quite frightening. I remember my husband, and I'd literally sit up in the bed and I'd be looking for his chest, and I might just put my hand on him just to see if he's, if his chest is moving, and then he'd kind of gasp. And it can be very, very frightening, but when you're aware of what it is, and this is for the partner, the sleeping partner, when you're aware of what it is, then, it's not as stressful. But my husband ended up with a CPAP machine, which is a continuous positive air pressure. So it's a mask. And this is what they use to treat the sleep apnea, to help manage.
Does it help?
It helps some people, but some people can't wear the masks because it's
like confining, I can imagine.
Yeah, can you imagine and even even for me as his wife, I was like, oh my God, it was really weird. It felt really weird, now obviously I got used to it. But we actually, what we did what's called a sleep divorce. So a sleep divorce is where we sleep in separate rooms. And you know what, it just works. It just works because we tried everything on it, and because he couldn't use the CPAP machine, and his snoring is just dreadful. And thank God we have a big house, and the bedrooms are like on 4 corners of the house, if you like, so there's a big gap in between, so I can't hear him. But he's really loud. But the thing about sleep apnea is it starves the brain of oxygen, because you're not getting the right amount. And this is why people who say, oh, I slept my 8 hours, but they may have sleep apnea, so they're feeling really foggy in the morning when they wake up, kind of drunk almost, right? Because they've that brain fog first thing in the morning. So if you suspect sleep apnea, I suggest going to your doctor and asking for a sleep lab test done. A lot of people are undiagnosed and not aware, but the snoring is a big indicator, and also obesity is a big indicator.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So weight loss would really help.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
they can work with a health coach or something.
And now I have seen people who have had sleep apnea and they've reversed it. I have seen people.
From weight management.
From weight management,
Wonderful.
lifestyle, changing the lifestyle. Because if you think about it, if you have extra weight, it's going to
too much
pressure on the airways when you're lying down. Like it makes sense. It's logic.
Totally, especially between the organs and on the rib cage.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is obviously a really not a very nice sleep disorder, and I think there are a few others, but this was the most concerning.
Yeah, yeah.
How do sleep disorders affect our hormonal system and our anxiety and depression? How does that kind of link?
That's a great question. So in terms of our hormones, so we have our 24-hour daily rhythm, circadian rhythm, and I mentioned cortisol earlier on and melatonin. So these are our daytime and nighttime hormones. So cortisol is more, it's highest in the morning time, and melatonin is highest in the evening time. So melatonin naturally drops off when it's time to go to sleep, but it's supposed to. Yeah. And then the melatonin is highest. So they're the two main hormones in relation to the circadian rhythm. Now, when it comes to, in terms of our hormones for the women, women tend to have more sleep problems than the men, unfortunately, because women go through another cycle in life with menstrual cycles. So these are the monthly cycles. And after the ovulation, this is where body temperature can tend to rise. Remember I spoke about body temperature needs to cool down for the onset of sleep, for the melatonin to come on. So, so this is where we tend to have the night sweats, but also because the body temperature is slightly higher, it causes more disruptions in sleep. So, so that's really significant. And, when you understand all of this, it's not so scary and you can do something about it, And again, back to mindset as well and what you tell yourself about it. And, exercise and all that kind of thing really helps to keep your hormones in check. But keeping in sync with that circadian rhythm and really respecting it. And the same thing is true for premenopause and menopausal women as well. So the hormones are a little bit, they're all, So that can interrupt that flow as well. But there's a lot that we can do to minimize it, if you like, that it's not, that we're aging gracefully. I like to use
what
that
kind
word.
of things would you?
So it's all, what we do during the daytime. So what we do during the day is really going to impact how we sleep at nighttime, but also it's all to do with our cycles and our rhythms. Like, it's profound, it really is. If we respect nature and we fall in sync with nature, it can really help our hormonal health. And as we transition through aging as well, so aging gracefully. So if we're eating the right foods, less stress on the body because it's less repair that the body has to do, because the more stress we have on the body, there could be chemical stress, physical stress, emotional stress, and it's the accumulation, even EMF. We talked about phones earlier on, the electromagnetic fields, that's a toxin, invisible toxin. So reducing toxins in our environment as much as we can, eating healthy, having a positive mindset, this can all help our hormonal health, believe it or not, which will help our sleep as well, and for the women in particular to transition through these life stages.
Right. You talked about exercise, and also we talked a little bit about meditation. But can you talk about exercise and maybe how you start your day, how that, because you said...
So exercise is super important for many reasons. So many people who have difficulty with sleep would have pain. So there's a lot of people in pain that have physical pain, and exercise can really help with that. Because exercising helps to relieve endorphins, and these help with pain, they help to reduce pain. So again, that pain, sleep, it's a vicious cycle. But exercise can help with our serotonin levels. And what's significant about serotonin is we need serotonin to make our melatonin. So that's really, really important. And this is why getting out, getting sunshine first thing in the morning is super important, because first of all, it helps to reset your circadian rhythm. It helps to switch off your melatonin and allow for the cortisol, because that's important. And exercise can really help to increase our serotonin levels, help to increase our endorphins, helps to increase our mood. And if we're in better form, there's less stress.
So it's really nice to go out in the morning and walk.
Yeah, and if you want to lose weight as well, so exercising early in the morning before you have something to eat is a great way, because you're burning from the fat, the fat cells, from those reserves. Now, there's a whole other conversation around, the fat burning, and there's so many days that you. It's getting rid of the cortisol and the blood glucose out of it, because we have different methods, energy reserves that the body uses for energy, and fat is one of them and glucose is another. So it's the bad fat that we want to lose, not the fat off of our muscles. We don't want to lose our muscle mass, rather. We don't want to lose that. So exercising first thing in the morning can really help with that as well. And just exercise. Now, don't exercise right before you go to bed. I did have one client, and they did like a 5K run before they went to bed because they were desperate to go to sleep. But what that did was it raised the core body temperature. And remember, the core body temperature has to be reduced. And because it's the core body temperature, it can take 2-3 hours for that to cool down, especially after a 5K run. Yeah. So there's no way that person would be wired and tired. They'd be exhausted, all right, but there's no way that the onset of sleep can happen naturally.
Now we've all done stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I have to laugh because I have to get that exercise in. I'm going to do it at all costs.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's not productive because you end up not sleeping.
Exactly.
It's true.
So when you understand why, then you can do it more effectively.
Wonderful. And anxiety and depression. I mean, so many people suffer from this today. And I know when people are anxious, they're just thinking of the future and worried. And when they're sad, they just don't maybe have a fire for life.
Yeah.
So both of these can affect your sleep, right? Because you're worrying all night, or you're sad, or So how does this work?
And I've been there, yeah. So I really get it. I really get what it's like. So the anxiety, you're right. It's all about worrying about the future events. What's going to happen, and we anticipate the worst outcome. So we're like, stressed out. And then the depression, as you say, it's like there's no hope. And I had that after I lost my daughter. So it can be a really vicious circle, because the anxiety, it's not allowing the body to naturally wind down and relax at night time. You've got high levels of cortisol then going around in the body, and then you've got that glucose issue again, weight, all that kind of thing, just a vicious circle. So in our society at the moment, there's a lot of people with anxiety because they're just over worried about stuff and there's so much going on, and especially in the last number of months, people are uncertain. They're not sure of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we like to predict. We like to know what's going to happen as human beings. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big uncertain.
Yeah. So when you can go with the flow and do your meditation, do your breathing, it helps you to be really present again. And I love to do a 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique, which uses all the senses. So 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, using all the senses working.
So how do you do
one.
that?
So you just basically 5 things that you can see in this room. So I can see cameras here, and I can see lovely Kathleen, the lovely fire. So it really makes you present to what's physically here. And
it brings you like in the here and now.
Exactly, because you're focused.
So you look at 5 things.
Yeah, in the room.
And then what do you do?
And then you listen. You listen for 4 things.
Okay.
So what can you hear? I can hear the fire here. I can hear the traffic outside.
Yeah.
So noise is in the distance. Noise is very close. And you work the way down through the senses, so what you can see, what you can hear, what you can smell, what you can taste, what you can touch, and you just experience those senses, and it really switches the mind off thinking ahead into the future. Okay. It's a fantastic way. Wonderful. Because it's all about the senses, and even when we're breathing, focusing on your breath, because you're focusing on something. So it's all about focus. When you even a candle flame, if you focus on a candle flame, it's a very good way of, there's loads of ways we can meditate, loads of ways. But it's really, and we talk about mindfulness as well, mindfulness, being aware of the present moment. And then meditation can help with traumas maybe in the past or whatever, goes a lot deeper, meditation. So that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But yeah, it's so effective, and it's really just, if we can be present, it can take us out of the anxiety of in the future, and it can slow us right down. We can think more clearly, because if we're anxious, the amygdala, which is our emotional center in the brain, it's just amplified.
And that amygdala is always like there to look, am I safe, right?
Exactly.
So if you're anxious, you're not safe because you're worried, that you feel uncertain.
Yeah.
So if you can do these, like be in the moment and breathe and do meditation or whatever works for you. Some people do yoga or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Those practices help you to calm the whole brain. And calm the breathing and slow the system.
Yeah, and it's really important that you do something that you like. You know, it's not like, well, I have to meditate.
Yeah.
Some people run a mile, and
Yeah.
a lot of people misunderstand meditation. Meditation could be going for a walk.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just being present, really. You know.
Yeah, like look at trees and look at
Yeah,
leaves.
yeah, and you know, it's,
Exactly.
you know, in the autumn time, the colours in the trees are gorgeous, and then, you know, it's
Yeah.
springtime and the buds are starting to come out. There's a lot to look at in nature. We are so disconnected from nature, and you know, we've evolved. We used to live outdoors, like, you know, for a long time, so you know, we're pretty much part of the earth, even ground. And in the morning time, what I love to do is walk on grass. I do that. I walk. My neighbours
take your
will think
shoes off.
I literally take my shoes off,
Yeah.
and especially because you've dew on the grass first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And so we've got the negative ions coming from the earth, which help to ground us, because we're full of, you know, with positive ions and negative ions. So you know, with too many positive, it can get a bit chaotic, and you know, with positive ions
Yeah,
from
we're in our
electronics.
head. We're not in our body.
Yeah, so ground and walking on our bare feet in the grass is great. That's something else that you can do. But this can really help us to be part of nature again. And see, we're indoors, and you know, we've been in our homes for so long as well. So we need to get outdoor. We need to get fresh air.
It's very
just
important.
really simple, practical things, you know. Because if you think about how did we live thousands of years ago, we need to go back to that to a certain extent, obviously, you know. We've got, you know, a lot of technology these days as well, so we need to be mindful of that. But the anxiety, you know, even electronics, we're constantly on our phones.
So tell me something, like, especially for young kids. I just can't believe how much they're on their phone. It's like constant.
Crazy.
So what would you advise, like, for their health? A number of hours at most? I mean, they are sometimes on these Zoom all day now,
Yeah.
but they will eventually go back to school.
It's screen time. It's you know, how much screen time, and screen time can comprise of watching TV, but on the phones, the tablets, the games that they play. And there's so much technology around us, you know, and we can't escape it. So it's really about appreciating it, you know, respecting it, but using it at the right time and for the right amount of time.
Much would you think is way too much?
You know, every 20 minutes, this is what I do with my daughter, every 20 minutes I get her to put it down and maybe even just look away in the distance, but we regularly go for walks. In between my Zoom calls, I do a lot of Zoom calls, so I'd go for walks regularly, even it could be just 5 minutes. But for the children,
Or stand at least, right? Get away from.
Because there is the sitting disease. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people are sitting way too long. We're never designed to. We didn't have chairs in caves.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
That's true.
and but yeah, for the kids, they're on it way too long. But what's really important to understand is the blue light and the close proximity of these electronic devices. So the screens, and you can literally see the blue light reflecting off the screen. But the blue light mimics daylight, and the body gets confused. The body thinks it's daytime. So when and even teenagers are sneaking their phones up to their bedroom, and they're on their phones even when they're in the bed. And this is really dangerous, you know.
So one of the things, like, I know I got a filter on my eyeglasses to take the blue light, and I actually got it for my children who are on.
Great.
Yeah, because it's not about glasses. It's about getting that blue light that you're not on it all day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because too much of it is going to confuse the body. Again, wreak havoc with your rhythms, you know.
Yeah. And you can just go to any ophthalmologist to get that, because I got it on my eyeglasses.
Yeah. There's blue blocking glasses.
Yeah.
And if you're using a laptop, there's a free program called Flux, F.LUX, just Google it. It's free. It's a free program for laptops. The iPhones, I think, have their own built-in device, and Android phones have something called Twilight. But
and they can take out the blue light.
It can or
reduce it.
Ideally, you want you see, the other thing about mobile phones as well, it excites the brain, and it creates a lot of dopamine. And this is how we're addicted. This is how we're going down the rabbit hole of these, you know, and we can't get off the phone. So we need to be mindful of this dopamine addiction, you know, too much dopamine. This is a seek and reward neurotransmitter in the brain. And that's really important. But it excites the brain, gets us all excited. And we want to be winding down and slowing down.
You can look at it like a computer, right? You can look at it like how much input comes in.
Yeah.
And you have to also have time to output.
Yes.
And if you're only inputting it day after day, you cannot digest all that.
Yeah.
It becomes too much.
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot of information, and see all the scrolling. our brain can't take that information in, you know, and it's just too much. It can get really overwhelming.
And then you have a burnout.
Anxiety. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then you can't sleep.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing I know with people with the burnout, first sign, I cannot sleep.
Yeah. In the mornings, I do not turn my phone on for at least an hour, maybe even 2 hours. It's great.
That's great.
Yeah, it's on
a good
flight
habit.
mode. Yeah, I don't go near my phone. So that's a really good habit to get into. And because first thing in the morning when we're checking our phones, we're actually giving our power away to other people. We're giving, you know, if you think about it that way.
Definitely.
And first thing in the morning, I really do encourage a morning routine for a power hour. That's what I call it. Really build yourself up in that first hour.
So walk in nature, breathe, meditate.
Yeah, whatever it is that fills you up, whatever it is. It could be watching something educational on YouTube or whatever, reading a book, meditate, whatever. But something that's for you, that you're...
Not social media.
No.
Not like, I know.
Because we need to self-care. We need to care for ourselves, and we don't do that. You know, we're give, but we need to really care for ourselves because it makes us feel important, fills us up with our own power. And that's really important to make us feel good so that we're not anxious.
Yeah, and obviously body, mind, and spirit are all part of our wellness, right?
Yeah,
and so you, from a holistic perspective, we've really looked at the physical, the exhaustion of not the sleep disturbance, getting a disease, getting an imbalance, the mental having like a breakdown. Right? And the spiritual, what happens to people spiritually when they don't get enough sleep?
Yeah, and that's a great question because, you know, a lot of people, you know, they're on this quest, what's my purpose in life, you know, and, you know, what does life mean to me? But we're living, you know the way they're saying we live paycheck by paycheck, you know, well, that's how we're living our day to day at the moment because it's so chaotic and we're so uncertain and all this. But you know what, when you can stop and be present, and just really slow down, you're working from within. You can access within. If you're chaotic, if you're exhausted, and the body is always craving the wrong types of foods, and we're in the wrong place when we're tired and exhausted. Whereas if you're fueled up and you feel complete, and you can really access your inner self rather
your best self.
Yeah, your higher self. You're showing up at your best because we're living our life in response to our environment and in response to our exterior world, to the people around us, to circumstances.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can be with what's so, you know, and like we had we had to change around our plans earlier on today, and we just said, you know, it is what it is, and we rearranged a few things and it's grand.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
so
also being able to do that.
Yeah.
Because when you're your best self, you can be flexible.
Absolutely.
But when you're exhausted and you can't even think of one more thing.
Absolutely.
Because you're so limited, then you start to become impatient with others.
So you can access the prefrontal cortex when you're when you're well rested. You can access, and this is where we can make proper decisions. We can access our assessment center in our brain, if you like. Whereas if we're tired and exhausted, we're always on alert, high alert, and the amygdala is amplified. It is actually amplified. It's shown on MRI scans when we're not sleeping well. It's
and then
amplified.
You don't have your reasoning anymore, is what you're saying.
It's out the window.
So even your decisions are not necessarily the best for you.
Yeah.
Not even how you just communicate with others, but so your communication's affected, your decision-making skills, and this fight or flight, we know that you're running and you're not thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So eventually,
and our relationships as well, which is huge.
It affects everything.
Huge. Yeah, you're screaming at the kids and
not good. Yeah. So you have become a health coach on top of this. Why you did all these other things?
Yeah.
Why did you choose to do health coaching?
Well, because sleep is a major part of our health, but we got to look at everything holistically. So everything together. So what we eat, the exercise that we're doing, our self-care, how we think, on all the different levels. So physical health is really important for sleep, exercise, but then there's our mental health, as I said as well, and our attitude. And I wanted to get into health coaching because I can tell people I can tell them, wake up at the same time every day and, create a wind down routine. But if they're not eating well and they're not marrying all these things together, it's all about lifestyle and it's all about respecting your rhythms, eating well, exercise, and all these things can really help.
But then you can also help them one-on-one, right? Because they have to do the journey.
Absolutely, and everyone's an individual, so it's different for everybody. I can give guidelines out in general and people can pick up on that. But sometimes you got to work on a one-to-one with somebody because they might have something really different and, they might not like what the other person likes. There's loads of different things that you can do. There's loads of
And they want to work on something different.
Exactly. So it's really important that the individual finds something that they like, because then you're more motivated to do it, which is really, really important. You've got to have fun. A lot of people are missing fun in their lives as well. So bringing all the holistic health and well-being together really helps to make sleep more effective.
Yeah, so you look at all the areas. So it just gave you more tools in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Now, you are an entrepreneur. You have a business. You have a podcast.
Yes.
When you look at all this, like the podcast and all the things you give, and where do you see yourself going?
Well, I love my podcast. It's called Empowering Family Health. And the reason I started that was because I want to speak to families. Because I believe that your health starts in the home from a young age when you're a child. But I really speak to parents, because parents are our role models. So children, you can't really tell children what to do, because their brain works differently than ours. They're like sponges. They just watch everything and observe, and that's how they learn. And that's how they're wired. So I believe that parents have a very big responsibility, and it's great. But when parents understand this and they act and behave in the way that they like their children, and it's about acting and behaving and walking the talk. So that's what Empowering Family Health is all about. I bring doctors, health practitioners, even parents onto the show, and we talk about anything health related as well. And it's just fantastic. So I am you're probably the first to hear this, but I am working on creating a documentary, bringing all health practitioners together, really all in the space of empowering family health again, because I just believe children, I'm just so passionate about children, and I want to work more with children, maybe more with parents, but for the effect of children, to educate parents, because I just believe your childhood is so important, and you are who you are when you grow up as a result of your childhood and the rearing that you received and the health and wellness, and your environment and your physical health is so important when you're a child. So that's where I see my work going. Nice. God knows what else will pop up, but I just love helping families and children. I'm very passionate about children.
Oh, well, they're our future.
They are,
and we need to take care of them.
Yeah,
it's a wild world they're being born into.
Yeah, and it's completely different than when we were reared.
Yeah.
So it's challenging, but it's doable, and it's such a precious gift.
Well, the world is definitely lucky to have you. Thank you for all your work and for sharing today with our audience.
Oh, thank you, Colleen. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope you enjoyed our interview today. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. See you next month.